So let me get this straight, Amazon or Meta, they fire half of their managers. And what you're going to argue on the podcast today is that was not a mistake?
So the mistake really was firing them without fixing the system first.
You can tell that to the executives that now have 40 to 60 direct reports, like friend of the show, Jensen Huang.
Oh, dear.
He's a friend of the show with his cool. He's just like you and me with his cool leather jacket.
Yeah, sure he is. Exactly.
Is that a $10,000 jacket you got on there?
This is $15, but it's not leather.
$15,000?
No, $15.
Oh,
not quite, but okay. So it's not unbossing.
That's our phrases.
Yeah. That's the term you're gonna hear a lot today.
Right.
It's not unbossing. It's chaos disguised as efficiency. In air quotes.
Okay, so the problem isn't having too few managers. It's too many decisions with no owner or accountability.
Now you're onto it. Yeah, you can't flatten something you never designed to scale in the first place.
Welcome back to Arguing Agile. If this is your first time, welcome. I'm your host, product manager, Brian Orlando, and this is my co-host, business agility consultant, and the ace of the business case, Mr. Patel.
Welcome one and all.
Today's episode is about unbossing, which is a term that's completely made up and you won't find anywhere else but right here on the podcast, about the current trend, which actually has been going on for a long time, the trend of blowing up middle management, like your Wile E. Coyote with the TNT, blowing up middle management. And
literally,
and then thinking you're okay, because what does middle management do anyway? They just push some papers around, right? That's today. So by the end of this episode, you'll be informed about what's been happening in the last several years with companies flattening structures, and you'll be able to spot helpful reorgs versus unbossing theater. That's right, we're talking about real org design and practical advice to keep leadership and your reporting structures and your hierarchy at your company, to keep it scalable, not chaotic. So if you can find that anywhere else on the internet, good org design advice, oh boy, if you can find that for free and not have to pay somebody $650 for a course on the internet, you should take that deal.
Exactly. But you're here, so we'll make it worth your while.
We will. I guarantee it. Or your money back.
That you didn't pay. Okay, let's go.
Can you really delete middle management and expect that the work will magically self-organize? Coordination doesn't disappear just because the coordinators disappear.
The work is still there. Yes.
Yeah, and I do have to say, this is an interesting take for me to be on the side of, because I have spent many, many podcasts up until this point being on the other side of this arguing point.
Yes.
To say, let the teams do the coordination work. But as we know, as orgs have scaled back the coordination roles, the scrum masters and team leads and the scaled product folks or the scaled team lead folks or whatever, as orgs have scaled those roles back, the job still has to get done. So who does it? Well, haphazardly, a bunch of people do it.
Or not do it well.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Or not. Yeah.
I remember not too long ago, there was a distinct role in project management called a project coordinator. And you haven't heard about that title in a long time. They've disappeared.
Yeah.
Now, the work, to your point, right? The work hasn't gone away. It's just got absorbed by various other personas in different degrees of efficiency.
In a lot of you know what I've seen in a lot of California-based companies, California, New York, that kind of area, like Silicon Valley or Silicon Valley adjacent companies, is I've seen a lot of companies taking on this chief of staff role. And I have to think maybe some of these coordination activities have been absorbed by this chief of staff role. But even that's the chief of staff is just one person. So they can only absorb so much. We'll talk later on the podcast about a Google initiative that did something similar. Mm-hmm. But I have seen that.
Yeah.
Coordination roles by other names.
Indeed. Yeah, and that is the reasonably recent trend with that title. I think Another title rather that goes back a bit is the operations manager.
Right.
And when you can't figure out who owns something, it's the ops manager. Typically, that's how it was handled.
You know what? I'm okay with that. I think at a recent event, shout out to B if you're watching. At a recent event, I was talking to B, and we were that's a person, by the way. It doesn't sound like it when I say I was talking to B. I was talking to B, and she was talking about kind of what she enjoys, and I said it sounds a lot like a traditional operations role. And by a traditional operations role, I mean like a very chaotic. This person just kind of grabs things, figures out how to get it done initially, and then writes the playbook of the process after they're done. Yeah. Like they intercept the chaos, deal with it so it doesn't you put up the umbrella so it doesn't get everyone wet, and then when the job is done and over, they kind of write the playbook going forward. And that's what I think about that's what I think about a good operations, like a COO, chief of operations.
Yeah.
When you're a small company, you don't really need that full time because every employee is kind of talking to other people saying, hey, I ran into this thing. I don't really know how to deal with it. What should we do? And they kind of talk to each other and they figure out the playbook between the few of them. When you grow to like 30 people, you can't really do that anymore. You need to start like segmenting jobs and stuff like that. Yep. And then you probably have a full-time COO, or at least someone, quote, playing the role. Yeah. I have not said playing the role in many, many podcasts.
You haven't. That's right. This is very apropos here.
But yeah, shout out to B and shout out to operations people. Operations people who, in our last podcast that we did on AI, like who gets trained in AI, and you remember they're like 66% of surveyed executives expected people to learn AI and to advance in their AI skills, and only like 30% of employees were getting training in AI.
Yeah.
Same thing.
66 was aspirational.
Sorry, we got on a tangent for operations.
A little bit.
We went on a tangent before we even got into a category. This is a new high for us on the podcast right now. So to get us back on track, with all tangents aside, what you'll learn in this episode is how to spot when org flattening crosses into chaos. We'll talk about how to learn when managers aren't the problem and it's more a system design issue. And then we'll talk about getting practical redesign tactic before you go into any kind of like org changes or redesigns or position removal or anything like that. So those are the three things that I want to get out of this podcast today.
Awesome.
So that brings us to the first category is, can you really delete middle management and expect work to magically reorganize? It's like coordination, like it doesn't just disappear because the coordinators do. I segued into this last time, and then we got way off topic. So we're going to stay on topic this time.
Yes.
How you'll know you'll be dealing with someone who is on the side of the against in this category is they'll give you one of these points. They'll say, listen, flat orgs make people more empowered. They'll say less management leads to faster decisions, and then our meetings are more efficient, and we can actually get some stuff done when the managers are not in our meetings. And the last one that I'll point out, if you empower people with autonomy and you actually distribute the decision-making responsibilities, then that autonomy, that empowerment and autonomy naturally replaces the hierarchy that most companies go with out of the box. Which I will tell you, in any other podcast, I would be firmly on the side of every single point that I just said. Firmly in the camp, very difficult to sway out of all of those points.
But today you're not in that camp?
Today I'm on the other side
okay.
of the fence today. Today I'm Wilson in Home Improvement with my nose above the fence right now.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll stay on the other side so we can have a game of ping pong or whatever. Tennis.
Well, remember the bounding of this podcast is Amazon is cutting 30,000 people, saying out of those 30,000, the vast majority are middle managers, and we need to just flatten. Mark Zuckerberg has come out and saying, "Hey, you don't want to work for middle managers, kids, right?" 45-year-old dude wearing a hoodie, trying to look like he's 20.
Yeah.
Just saying, it's weird. It's weird, Mark. Friend of the show, Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, like, step into my office, Mark. It's strange. It's odd. Wear a suit, bro. Do you like to be called bro? That's what I'm asking, Mark.
He probably does.
I'm gonna Photoshop Mark Zuckerberg into the middle of us right now. I'm not. Let's be honest. I'm not putting that level of effort into. Yeah.
Nah. Let's kind of hear the other side of the equation a little bit.
The opposite side, coordination. It's gonna rear its head, no matter how flat you make your org.
Under any other name, maybe.
Right.
But it will come back. Exactly.
So you're saying I don't need. So like the issue with the I don't need middle managers is, let's break this door down real early in the podcast. We're saying middle managers and we're saying middle management. Most companies hear and see middle management and they're saying, oh, all these people that they're not in IC contributor, quote, productive roles. Basically, I'm saying we're shuffling Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, any person in the org whose role is mainly coordination rather than IC engineer or knocking out code or writing things or whatever. Individual contributor, basically. Anybody who's not an individual contributor, they're in this category of middle management. No matter if they actually supervise people or not, they're in this category for the purpose of this podcast. And the problem with that is, cool, let's get rid of all the middle managers and have a completely flat org. The problem, though, is it's not completely flat, is it? Still got Zuck at the top.
You do. Exactly. So there's always a hierarchy. There's never a completely flat, i.e. just a flat pancake. You've got the leader and everybody else. You can say you have that on paper, but with the passage of time, very little time, by the way, you're going to start introducing layers in the middle, even if they're informal at the beginning. Because that, to your point, the coordination activities, they don't go away. Someone has to do them. Right. So leadership, if you look up, right, all the layers are gone. Leadership don't want to do those.
They don't want to do them, but I'm telling you, when you slice away all the middle managers, the individual contributors don't take on. They don't take on the responsibilities. They don't take on the accountabilities. They don't automatically get cool, we got rid of your manager, Here's a truckload of money with which to manage all of the assets and things that we own on behalf of your department and group. We don't just hand over that money to you. It's owned by the person above your manager that didn't get cut. So now your manager, who maybe had like 5 people reporting into them, cool, they got cut. We have less middle managers. Everyone's happy, more coding. Everyone's happy about that, theoretically. But in actuality, what happened is now your manager, who had like 5 direct reports, is gone. Now your manager's manager, who has like 25 reports, is now your new boss. Sounds great, right? Hey, I'll never see that guy. He barely even knows who I am. Cool story, bro. But I mean, good thing you don't ever need anything from the organization, like money or promotion or coaching, like somebody to break a tie or whatever on your behalf.
Decisions. Yeah, I was going to go there. So what happens? The primary thing you're going to see right away, the initial symptoms would be decision latency, because those at the very top never made those decisions.
I'm going to call decision latency is a great zinger. Yeah. I'm going to call that a decision bottleneck because of the podcast we did where we referenced Goldratt so much. Yeah. I'm going back. I'm rolling the clocks back and going full Goldratt and going. So you've gotten rid of the people whose job it is to unblock. You see where I'm going with this, right? To coordinate communication and decisions between teams, to ensure decisions are made in a timely and expedited manner, to knock down blockers when they come up or when they see them coming up before they even become a blocker, right? Yep. And you've gotten rid of those people because you think that, all they do is middle management. You've gotten rid of all those people and said, well, developers can do that. In the research for this podcast, downsizing, right-sizing, whatever efforts, they go back to the 80s and potentially before. I stopped digging when they went back to the mid-80s to the late 90s, studies about cutting middle managers and the effect. If you think that you don't need folks to do this coordination,
think again.
Yeah, step into my office, because who's going to do these activities? It's how many jobs can you get rid of in your workplace before wake up in the morning and you do so many different things, you don't even know what you do today. It's almost like you work in product management now.
Yeah, I think those people that say, "No, we don't need middle managers," all those coordination, things that they would have done or they did, they can be done by developers. There's two issues with that. You're keeping those developers around because they're ICs, right? So if you're going to get them to focus on other things, they're becoming less IC.
Yeah.
But before that, the issue really is developers develop. That is their forte, right? Making these decisions, all these things, that doesn't turn them on. They don't like doing all this stuff, going into meetings and stuff. They're always arguing against meetings. Okay, leave me alone in my basement with my computer and slide some pizza under their door once in a while. And we're good. I'll crank out code all day long. So it doesn't jive that they can do it, right? All these activities, they'll just pick up the slack. It doesn't jive.
It's a bananas argument, by the way, because again, write all the code all day long, 24/7. It's like you write all the code in your basement that nobody knows about, and you don't ever talk to anyone. That's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be writing code that nobody ever sees. You need to get out there and talk to people. That's just that's not even. It sounds silly to say out loud because it sounds like, of course, Brian, of course. But the same thing they're using to get rid of middle management, the same excuse they're using, these people are just overhead. We can have more developers, Well, more developers to do what? Because remember, this is just we're saying middle management, but I'm lumping into middle management also the people that just do coordination that maybe don't manage people, and I'm lumping into middle management the people whose job it is to bridge communication to other departments.
Yeah,
because your Scrum Master could be bringing the marketing folks in to say the business understands that we need to coordinate with marketing for go-to-market activities, and there may be some things that they want out of us to say, hey, before we go to market, you need to, the development team needs to run some demos or set up some test data or some other things. They might want to put some stuff on your roadmap in support of their go-to-market. And that's a legitimate business activity. But if you just want to be those are just marketing people. I don't work for them and I don't do I'm not going to do any of that. No one's ever going to, then cool, no problem. No one's ever going to know that your software exists. And then how are you going to make money at that point?
Yeah.
If you're considering flattening your org, start by mapping your coordination tasks before you start the cutting. At least if you're not going to do anything else. At least do that. Some steps here. Identify, clarify, decide. Those are my 3 steps. Identify every regular cross-team dependency that you have, every touch point that you have on a regular basis. Clarify who owns each interaction, right? Usually the product manager owns a lot of them. If you don't have product managers, maybe your tech lead or senior developer or something like that owns them. I've been on teams where basically the most vocal or personable developer owns them when the hierarchy is very flat, right? I've seen that before. And then decide if you can remove that management apparatus safely.
Yeah. And you've got this meme pops into my head when we talk about this, especially when people say, well, we don't need, the middle managers like Scrum Masters or Agile coaches or whatever else. It's the meme really is a boat. It's a Hawaii 5-0 style. You got all these team members rowing, and you've got somebody who's keeping the beat and somebody who's basically chanting in, out, the coordinator. Get rid of those people, and good luck rowing in the same direction.
So have you seen the initiative to move to flat orgs backfire? Drop your horror story in the comments below. And then next up, we're going to discuss what we touched on in the intro. Unbossing, it's not inherently wrong. It's just not a normally done thing that is done in a non-haphazard way. Not to lead this category already before we even start arguing, but it's not the org flattening layoffs that kill organizations. It's flattening without rethinking how the work connects. And with the last podcast that we had about in arguing Agile 250, CEOs admit there's no AI ROI, but they keep buying it anyway. We talked about if the solo paradox is real and we are entering that phase where tools have been created to radically change the way the work is done today, but nobody's really adopting it and getting productivity gains out of it. I mean, people are adopting it, but they're not really getting productivity gains out of it because they'd have to change their whole work process, and they're not ready to change they're not ready to upend, they're not ready to go through that quote agile transformation or whatever it takes.
Yeah, it's
to
too
get
much
there.
disruption for them.
They're not willing to get there. That's sort of this category is you feel that your middle managers are not producing like your ICs, and you feel like you want more ICs, but you don't really you can't really put your finger on the button of what is the right level of coordination percentage of employees, and what is the right amount of time spent on coordination versus normal work, that kind of thing. So you kind of just take out your pocket knife and slash away a big part of the org and say, did I hurt myself? You slash away a bit of your finger and say, do I have to go to the hospital? Am I all right?
Yeah. I mean, all of this is really leading to us saying, look, unbossing without redesign is organizational vandalism.
Yeah. Right.
You're destroying things here, really.
Yeah. Well,
and you may not even know that you're doing it, right?
The unrefined response to what you just said will be, sometimes we got to break some things. Sometimes you got to break some eggs to make an omelet. That's one of the. Listen, I'm already talking about against points. I might as well keep going.
Keep going.
We just need fewer layers. I just feel like we have too many layers. Nobody will say I just feel like. They will make a declarative statement and say we have too many middle management layers. We need to reduce. And reuse and recycle. I don't know. Anyway, and then they'll say matter don't add value, and they'll also say, and I know you. Hopefully, you'll go with me on this one. AI can replace middle manager. Is that a good one? That's if I replace middle manager in that statement and say AI can replace Scrum Masters, does it make you feel better about the statement?
No, it makes me want to throw up. But here's so let me go back to the first one you made.
You need another drink.
I do need a drink. We just need fewer layers. Okay, I'll go with that. But when they say we need fewer middle layers, do you even know what they do? If you're saying you do need fewer layers, how about we start at the top? There's way too many of you up there. A lot of these big orgs, especially the matrix ones, they have the inverted pyramid. Yeah. So you have too many people at the top. And if you cut only 10% of those, it would be equivalent to cutting maybe 50% of the middle managers because they have inflated salaries, egos. I don't know.
Egos?
Yeah. All of the above. So there are ways to do this, right? As far as manager roles don't add value.
What else is inflated up there?
Yeah, right.
Just want to know.
The same people who are saying these middle manager roles don't add value, right? That to me just tells me that they don't really understand what these middle managers even do.
The problem with middle management, when you say middle management, it conjures up to me the idea of a traditional org structure where you have workers, and the workers all report up to a manager, and all the managers together report up to different directors, and those directors all together report up to some kind of VP or senior
divisional leader or whatever.
Yeah, something like that, some kind of structure like that. The real world is way more chaotic than that, and organizations have wildly different levels, and it's not really structured anywhere. So I kind of almost don't know what this point is talking about. But if you're going to ground this point in saying, hey, deleting boxes off the org chart of here's a middle management swim lane, I'm just going to delete that whole swim lane. If that's your org design or org restructure, and you're the Jensen Huang of the world being I can have 60 direct reports. I'm great. I'm awesome. I tell people what to do, and they do it. I'm awesome at communication. Nobody ever asks me questions because I always communicate crystal clear from the mouths of babes themselves. I'm pretty sure that's a direct Jensen Huang quote. Is I don't need. Oh no, I'm sorry. It wasn't a Jensen Huang quote. It was a Mark Zuckerberg quote. Hey, I just talk to people, and I don't ever need to have one-on-ones. I just tell people what they need to know when they ask me questions. I clarify, and I don't ever need to have one-on-ones. And that's probably true for Mark Zuckerberg because people are so awestruck or fearful when he talks to them.
Starstruck. I thought I was Jensen, but it doesn't matter who it was really at this point.
I think it was both.
Look, it might have been both.
I can't tell all these people apart. What do you mean these people? Sorry.
All right, let's keep going. So the last point about AI can replace middle managers. Maybe, but look, middle managers do a lot of stuff. They react in the moment. They make value judgments. They make decisions. How about we turn that and say, well, could AI maybe even replace some of the senior managers, like leadership people? I'm just saying that, but really,
no, I think
that comes from the fact that you really don't understand what they do. Look, I'm willing to wager at most middle to large-sized organizations, when they talk about cutting costs, reducing headcount, basically, they don't think about necessarily deeply, at least, what capabilities are they cutting. They think about spreadsheets and cells and salaries and say, we need to reduce 10% of this bucket over here and X% of this bucket over here.
Right.
And that's a shame because you are throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
It's called a spreadsheet-driven development. It's that SDD.
SDD.
You don't hear about that too often in the developer community of spreadsheet-driven development. I wish that Theo, GG, and everybody else would do some videos on spreadsheet-driven development. They won't because it's ridiculous. When the accountants are running your organization, that's what you get.
That's most organizations.
But I've broadened. I've gotten my little crowbar in there. A mini crowbar, my mini crowbar, yeah, and I've wedged apart the middle management. I've wedged that apart to put coordination into that role as well, because I'm assuming I'm giving that layer of folk right now the most bandwidth that I'm ever going to give them on a podcast. I'm giving the most latitude I'm ever going to give them on a podcast because I'm putting scrum masters and people that are program managers. People like that, right? I would even slot in some project managers into that position.
Absolutely. Delivery managers too.
Delivery managers, yeah, that's true. The modern rebrand of the Scrum Master. Delivery managers, it sounds like they do more things. They deliver things. They bring my mail to my desk or other things. Anyway, they're translating strategy into execution via the coordination that they do day to day. That's basically what they're doing. And if you're going to say AI is going to replace that, cool, that would be great. Coordinating with a bunch of people and meeting and aligning them, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work that even the people doing that job, I don't think that they would cry too much to be like, hey, you're free of these responsibilities now. You can do more coaching and you can do more mentoring and maybe you can slide in and do some IC work and stuff. I think they would also be happy to do that. If the tech was good at that kind of thing, which it's not. Determinative versus what did we say in the last podcast?
Probabilistic versus deterministic.
Yeah, right. The person coordinating your work between teams, they can, in a deterministic manner, drive the same kind of outcome every single time. When you hand it over to the AI, now they're giving you a probabilistic outcome, which means 60% of the time they'll do a good job, and then the other 40% they'll just completely space and be like, well, what did you ask me to do? Sorry, I forgot that instruction. Hand it over to AI. I would love to hear your comments about this one. The companies that succeed at this, flatten the org to a point and then move forward as a leaner, meaner, more efficient organization. There are some companies out there, GitLab, Basecamp are ones that came up in my research. They redesigned first, which meant they understood the processes and interactions between teams and communications. The whole team topologies breakdown that we did 1,000 million podcasts ago on Arguing Agile 6.7.
I was going to wager 100 plus, but
Arguing Agile 6.7, team topologies, organizing business and technology teams for fast flow. By the way, the Team Topologies book we recommend highly on the podcast by Manuel Pius and the other guy,
Matthew Skelton.
Everybody should read it to understand. I think they're coming out with another book or a follow-up.
They may have already done that.
They might have already done it. We do need to do a follow-up.
We do.
Yeah, on their work. Because it was a million. I mean, it was like 200
long time ago
at this point. Yeah, it was like 4 years ago at this point. But it's a great book. But if you read Team Topologies, and you understand that there's different types of teams that have different coordination patterns. And then you were like, yeah, but I don't need this type of team or whatever. You should read that book first before you make that discernment. What I'm saying is get educated before you start cutting. Okay? And I want to point that out because I want to say you flatten interaction. You don't flatten people.
Absolutely. Yes. And if you flatten people first, which is what we're seeing all the time out there, those interactions will come back and haunt you.
Well, because
the lack of them.
Because people have skipped steps. Like
Sure.
they've not put in the work, and they've jumped straight to. We can have all streamlined teams. I'm not going to read the whole book. I read the 4 different modes: the streamline and enabling and subsystem and whatnot. The heck with all that. We're just going to have streamlined, flatten the whole org on streamlined, and not understand that like, well, your executive team is sort of like an enabling team. If you think about it, I didn't get that. I didn't read that far into the book. I just read the Manuel Pius part.
I just saw the diagram.
I didn't read the other guy's part. I only got the first guy's part. When looking to flatten the org, what I'm saying is you want to divide, reduce, and then
conquer,
and then utilize the visual. Okay, so you want to divide the responsibilities by team type. Because you remember, when you're trying to flatten the org, first you need to make some sort of visual cue of the org. And there's no way you can just do that, in your brain or whatever.
Or in a spreadsheet. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Or really if you're in a moderate sized org, you can't even do that on a whiteboard. You need like several whiteboards, right? If you're lucky enough to be in a small enough organization, like a 200 people organization, and you can do it on a whiteboard, cool. Count yourself lucky. This advice is for you.
You can modularize if you're in a large company, right? You can abstract down, like to your point, just come up with high level and then a little less, high, so more detail, a little more detail. So you could do it if you really wanted to, but this is the point, right? Define responsibilities by team type and not by hierarchy.
Yes, and then you want to reduce your dependency before you reduce the headcount. What does reduced dependencies even mean, Brian? That doesn't even mean anything, reduced dependencies. You just broke down your responsibilities by team type. You map out what your org looks like. Your real org. One of the most enlightening things I ever did with Team Topologies by Manuel Pius and the other guy is I took it upon myself at one of these leadership sessions where they fly all leadership in and whatever. So somehow I got invited. I think maybe I just showed up. I don't know if I really was invited, but I broke the org down by team topologies and I mapped it out.
Yeah.
And this is the way that I envision that our org works in actuality. And I remember everyone hated it. If there was one thing, that was universally agreed on in that session. Everyone hated my diagram. They hated it because we don't see this team as only doing XYZ or whatever. We think that the stream enabled teams might work on all these other different projects. And I said, then you have some problems in your org that you need to deal with. But my diagram is the way that things are in actuality. And the issue that you're pointing out is the way that things are mapped out in actuality is not the way that things that you envision should be the org design that you desire. This is a small company. This is like a 30-person company, right?
Yeah.
So negatively critiquing my design is not where you should put your energy. You should put your energy into constructing an org that is properly designed to scale.
Yep.
With teams that interact with each other in a positive manner. And boy, I don't think I ever financially recovered from that conversation because this team topology stuff could be groundbreaking at your organization if your leaders really understand, I get it. These are the interaction modes. These are the types of teams. This is the way everything works together. But boy, if you got any ego in that conversation, if you got any kind of but I think I'm smarter than Manuel Pius and the other guy. I think that I can do things have you written, where's Mike Miller at? Have you written a book? Are you really as smart as you think you are?
Can you wear a kilt? No.
Can you wear?
That was a Mike. I think the point you're making is very solid. So I didn't think about this earlier, before this.
Yeah.
If you're looking to reorg everything, if you just map out your organization a la team topologies, one of the things it lets you do at that point, before you take out the hatchet, is to optimize the structure of your org. And that might be a very useful interim step before you say, okay, now that I've done that and I understand what happens, all the interactions, etc., how can I now further optimize by, moving people or moving people out completely, right? Which is where they start, unfortunately.
But it might not just be people. It might be the interactions as well.
Absolutely.
Or responsibilities.
Yes. Yes. So when you're mapping out interactions, you're actually mapping out. This is sort of like process design. You're mapping out value well.
Listen, I sort of was trying to be on the other side of this podcast. I didn't want to go too deep into rehashing anything from Arguing Agile 6.7 because I think it's such a great number by Manuel Pius and the other guy. But you could totally say it's not just the teams, it's what they do. You can go deep. You can go deep into this.
Yeah, I think your number 2 on the takeaway is the point here, right? Reduce dependencies. We were trying to kind of head down to that level after saying define responsibilities by, the type of team you have and not by layers of hierarchy.
Yeah. And reduce your dependencies before you reduce your headcount. This slide here, great slide. It says define responsibilities by team type, not hierarchy. Team type being streamlined, platform team, specialized subsystem, that kind of thing. And the second point is you want to reduce your dependencies before you look at reducing your headcount. The third point is you want to use visuals for all these things. So you've used visuals to show your teams. And then obviously you can plug in who the people are under each team or whatever.
Sure.
And then, but also you want to show your dependencies between teams visually on this chart. And again, you're looking at, these people are just responsible for coordination. That's not a real job. That's just playing a role. I can have one of my developers do that part-time. You could do that. This is a leadership level, at least middle management level, org design, deep problem. And who has the skill? Who has been trained in your organization with the skill to do this kind of analysis, this kind of organizational design analysis? I know PhD org design folks that grapple with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, to your question, who's been trained to do this, etc. Slim to none, and Slim just left. Really, I mean, this is lacking in most organizations.
I have to think because it's so difficult. And because most people's education is not in this particular lane, that's part of why it's so bad. Because when you involve ego in this kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
When you involve ego in this kind of thing, it's hey, your organization is kind of designed like crap. That
nobody wants to hear that.
No, yeah, right. And also I'm not selling it very well right now, but also. I'm kind of sick of your crap, Om. That's what I'm saying right now. Hey, your organization is kind of designed like crap, and also you are crap. That's the way it sounds. That's the way it sounds.
Yeah. But if you're a C-level person and you care about the structure of your organization, and you don't have anybody on staff who can actually even map this out like this, you could do a lot worse than getting outside help from professional people that do know how to do this, and they may tell you what you don't want to hear. But that's what you want to hear.
Just call B. She's available. Just give her a call.
Right.
So what do you think? Do you agree that unbossing can work if you just redesign first? Comment below and then stick around for the next discussion, because next we are talking about leadership vacuums and who ends up actually leading when all the managers vanish.
Yeah.
Ninja vanish. That's what I'm saying, like Batman. So the hierarchy didn't die when we cut all the middle managers. It just went underground.
To reform and rise again.
In the prep for this podcast, Google had a no managers experiment, and they had a follow-on Project Oxygen. Google founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin tested this strategy, like getting rid of the middle managers and whatnot, in 2002. They eliminated engineering managers to see if a completely flat org would facilitate new ideas and hasten output from developers. That's right. Just like AI, They were trying to squeeze developers to make them faster. So the ping pong tables, that wasn't doing it. That's what I'm saying. So the experiment didn't last long because Paige and Bryn, they were soon overwhelmed by staff members' direct requests for guidance and the minutia of the workday. And boy, they rolled all that back super fast.
They have yachts to sail, so they didn't want to be helping every little developer here and there. And at that scale, it doesn't work.
And where did they sail those yachts? I mean, could have been anywhere. We see you. That's all I'm going to leave in the podcast. I'm not going to get quote political. It's not political if you're. Never mind.
No, if you're unredacted, yeah.
Yeah, if you're unredacted. That's right. I don't think the DOJ or whatever even redacted their names out of those files. The arguments here in when you fire your managers, the ghost leaders, they come out of the woodwork. Teams self-organize, and the leadership that the managers were holding on to, that will distribute naturally in the organization where to the best people, to the people that should have had it in the first place. That would be the argument. And then also, urgent leadership should replace these formal reporting lines. And in any other discussion, I would be full in the camp of those two things. I mean, I hear those 2 points and I'm grabbing my sword and I'm rallying to the cause. I don't know why it's 1250 AD. I don't know what's going on here.
I'd say, in the against category, I have seen on occasion some developers take very well to this, right? Sure. And they'll just, because they're basically hungry for this. Right. They want to lead. They're natural leaders. They're dynamic. They work well with people, as well as they churn out good code. So when given the opportunity, or when the opportunity arises, they grab it. Yeah. But you're not talking about the majority here. You're talking about very, very few people that will do this. That still leaves a void, right? So that's the only thing with this is, it's supposed to happen naturally, but does it? Well, I don't think it does stuff.
I like this category because, again, this category is, when you fire all the managers, and remember, because of the way we're going into this podcast, what I like intimating as managers is also all the people that the org will hire for coordination purposes. Project managers, program managers, scrum masters, delivery leads, whatever you want to title them, label them. We're getting rid of all those people. Traditional managers.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting rid of all those people. So, we got rid of all those people. It's just everything rolls back up to the Zuck now. Now, when you want to get something done, you'd go up to your boss, so you'd have 5 direct reports. You'd have a one-on-one with them every week. Now,
you got to wait a month.
Now you got to wait a month. And maybe your guy won't reschedule. I said guy because it's probably going to be a guy. These informal leaders that emerge, that we're touting as a positive, well, they have no actual authority, these informal leaders.
Right.
They still have to go to the same people that you would have to go to because now everything's flat. So you all got to go to the Zuck and hope that he's not trying to... What does Zuck do? Like, does it starts civil wars in third world countries? Like, what does he do? Like, and hope that he's not busy with something else. That's what
like
I'm
a congressional hearing, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, and it could be anything. Maybe they're not pulling him in front of Congress. Maybe it could be anything. Could be anything.
Yeah.
Maybe your person is not
available to you.
Maybe your person is not as busy as Mark Zuckerberg, is what we're saying. But maybe they are very busy. That's what we're saying. Friend of the show, Mark Zuckerberg. That's right. So that'd be the trade-off here is, hey, it's great. We flattened the org. We got rid of all the scrum masters. Now the developers can play the role. Speaking of Congress, emergent hierarchies, which is what we're talking about. Like, we got rid of our managers. Now the hierarchies is just emergent. We send whoever we want to the scale daily scrum, or to the leadership, or to the product meeting, or whatever, because maybe we don't have enough product managers or whatever. Or maybe our product managers are like we worked at LinkedIn, and like our product managers are all like
salespeople.
They're very busy, looking very nice on camera.
Yeah,
and their only interaction with the development team is like once every 4 months when they get a
retreat to Hawaii,
retreat or something like that.
Yeah,
and otherwise they just talk to their one technical lead out of India or whatever, and and then get lunch all day and post TikToks of it. The emergent hierarchies create politics instead of creating clarity. If the structure of the business is weak. And by the way you need to read into what I just said was, you just sliced all the middle managers and coordination folks out of the organization. You didn't put anything in place, in its place. So it's not like you came up with the Laddicework and the structure of here's how we'll communicate, here's how your team will talk to other teams and whatever. Like you didn't fix the system first and then start slicing. You sliced first and said, well, the structure will be emergent.
Good luck with that. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, right. That's I cut your budget and you'll figure it out. That's basically the
same thing. And to figure this, whatever it is, out, you have no authority to boot, right? So that just makes matters worse. It's like saying, go make me some tea, but you just can't have the water.
Where's Cartman at? Throw down this Laddicework of you'll lead through influence, like your influence leading. Like that as a structure, it rewards confidence, not competence. If you're competent and I'm confident and I make 10 decisions and 9 of them are bad and you make 3 decisions and all of them are good, I'm the one in that hierarchy that's going to get rewarded.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I mean, hands down. So this is what you see out there, right? But you're leaving it. It's sort of like, okay, throw a seed in this, in the soil, and maybe something will happen. Right. So, yeah, I mean, you're not really increasing your chances of success deliberately when you're doing this, right? Hopefully, it'll be emergent. Maybe it is. I mean, if most of your stuff is, offshored out, your chances diminish a little because people just want to do what they do. You pay me to develop. That's all I'm going to do, right? So I'm not a fan of this idea of, it'll just grow when there's enough water and sunshine. No. You have to do something deliberate, right? Fertilize it, give it some water once in a while.
Well, I mean, that's not even to mention that you're going to be burning out folks under this kind of deal.
Right.
The 3 good decision makers versus the people that are just shotgunning out things or whatever. Those folks, the 3 good decision makers, they're going to get burnt out quick, and they're going.
Right, right. And then smart developers will probably look at this and say, wait, you fired all the middle managers, and now you want me to take the helm and become one? Why would I do that? You need developers, right? You're keeping us as developers, so I'm just going to stay in my lane. I'll be developing, and I don't want any of that other stuff because that's just a way to get me closer to the revolving door out there.
I get, yeah. So when you're going about removing your formal leadership, explicitly assign decision, accountability, and authority, because again, those 2 go together. First you name the decision, then you assign transparent ownership of that segment of the business, that decision, all right, stability, I'll say it that too, and then you review and evolve constantly between all of the different folks that own different things, because some things might overlap between different teams. I'm just saying it's not set in stone. You've got these invisible managers that are filling the vacuum. Don't let it all be done invisibly. So I put those things up on the screen, let people take them in for a minute.
Awesome.
So what do you think? Have you seen ghost managers appear after restructurings? Let us know in the comments below. And then next, Ohm and I are going to talk through how the corporate ladders lost all their rungs.
All their footing, and they just slid down.
Yeah, and maybe how to rebuild them. Although I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if they can be rebuilt.
No, not easily.
When you delete middle management, you don't just delete bureaucracy. You also delete career mobility for most people. And I know that this is like dying down. This is definitely died down over the years. The collapse of the corporate ladder, it's a real thing because people's trajectories at certain companies are kind of tied to the corporate ladder. So if you're saying basically there's no future outside of an IC role at this company, you're basically saying there's no future at this company. And that would be good to know when you start working a job. I mean, the arguing points against this one, they're pretty shallow. So I'm just going to get them out of the way right now. They're going to say something along the lines of, the ICs, they don't need managers to mentor them. Right, traditional managers, right? People in the role of manager, playing the role. Yeah. They have maybe team leads, or they have seniors, or whatever. Or maybe there's people in other departments that are seniors, and then they'll say everyone can grow because we have strong peer learning in our organization. And of course, they'll say career ladders are an outdated concept. because it's just the corporate ladder is just not a thing anymore. Like everyone's moving jobs every 2 years, especially younger people. So there's no the corporate ladder's dead.
Yeah, and in favor of that argument, they could just say, if you're a flat organization, there's not much of a ladder anyway.
Right.
Maybe a step stool? I don't know.
I hope.
Yeah, one hopes. But that point you made, most people, I think it's fair to say, do jump from job to job fairly regular, especially Gen Zers do, right? I think there's been a little bit of research around that. They don't stay around in the job very long.
Yeah.
This is not the podcast to talk about that topic because it's not,
Well, this is part of the reason, though.
But exactly, yes, this is part of the reason. I mean, a lot of people, when they start work, they don't think about, I just want to stay here for a year or 2 years. Right. They don't think about it like I want to believe that they don't think about it like that. But pretty soon they find out all of these things that makes them uncomfortable and say, maybe the grass is greener on the other side. And if their skills are in demand, it's easier for them to hop.
I feel like we've stumbled on what could be a whole separate killer podcast at this point. That there are like the younger generation is reacting to this trend by just job hopping more frequently than anybody ever in the corporate environment. And basically they're saying we see an environment without clear pathways up in the organization, and their motivation and their retention in the organization have responded by taking the nosedive because there's no clear pathways anymore. There's no career ladder because, we want to be flat. We don't value any of these middle management positions or coordination positions. We don't value that. And then the flattening has also removed the feedback loop of the more positive feedback loop that you would get from a middle manager. And I say the more positive meaning good middle managers that were out there that actually were sponsoring your growth and lobbying for it and trying to unblock your growth through the organization, basically.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that'd be a great podcast.
And those people have been pushed out because people that have spreadsheets say we can't assess a value. We don't know how to assess a value to coaching and mentoring and sponsorship. So we assess 0. You end up on our next spreadsheet of people to cut.
You end up being red as a cell. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that podcast at some point.
If the only path to promotion meaning more money, is into these managerial roles, and the roles disappear, and also the mentorship benefit of those roles is disappearing, I think we've really uncovered a big reason for this. The younger folks just they're all job hopping or whatever. They're not really job hopping. It's just you're not investing in them anymore like you did in previous generations because you're trying to penny pinch that middle layer that you don't understand how to put a value to sponsorship and training and coordination, that layer of the organization that does all those things.
Right. Absolutely. And there is, again, that'll be another podcast, but there is maybe at least one way to figure out that value, but we'll cover that in that podcast.
So the takeaway here, to unboss without killing this growth layer of your organization, this layer of your organization that enables growth, you somehow need to separate IC performance from the coordination and mentoring without regard to promotions, right? Because that coordination mentoring layer, what we call middle management, that's traditionally seen as a promotion path from the individual contributor. So you take your best developer, you put them on a path to become the boss, and now their job is not to develop anymore and use any of their actual skills that got to be there. Now their job is just people skills, which they suck at, and then they become a terrible boss.
Yeah,
terrible first-time boss. And now we do a whole podcast about them or whatever. There's tons of companies now that are, especially now that like Silicon Valley and everyone's lauding the individual contributor, left and right. Everybody's an individual contributor with AI and whatever. So there's like many, many levels of IC, principal, product manager, that can staff product manager, that kind of thing. This is already happening, but what I feel is not as clear in what has been happening is that coordination and mentoring part of the job. Like, where did that go? They didn't land, like, team leads. You would think that's where it goes?
Possibly, yeah. But
not clearly.
But they, I agree. Not clearly. Team leads are team leads because of their experience, right, but mainly technical, right? They've not been enabled in mentoring, etc. Really, I mean, some may gravitate that way anyway, naturally, but because they're people oriented. But most team leads haven't been afforded that opportunity.
The other thing I was going to say here is that team lead position or that lead position. Utilize that position because the lead indicates that they go between teams. They're not tied to any one team.
Right.
That's what the lead indicates to me. I'd be interested in what other people have seen in this kind of, the person that goes between teams kind of. They're not really a manager. They're not really a supervisor. They're more like a principal. Gotta think about the principal role or the staff role would be this type of position. They're leads to me.
There are many titles out there, right? Chief developer, those kinds of things. Yeah.
And my other point here in the takeaways is to track and show growth rather than traditional outcome-based promotion. You get that last big project across the finish line, and that was the project you needed for your promotion or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the way. That's the carrot and the stick in corporate America. I think that's a super old model. I think that the growth over time, from where you started at to where you are now, and showing that these are the stair steps you need to go up to grow. I think that's what lands you your promotion in the kind of the modern org.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I've not seen that very often, but that's how it should be in lieu of the traditional sort of hierarchical model.
That's it for now. We're going to move on to the next category. So do you miss career ladders is what I'm asking. I know you don't, but do you really miss them or do you really not miss them? Let us know in the comments. Comment below, but do it quick because next we're going to close out the podcast by talking about what real unbossing looks like. Not the theory, but the actual design of how you would do this. So real unbossing. In order to do unbossing, which is also, I'm cringing. I said it so many times on this podcast, and it still doesn't mean anything. In order to do it and do it properly, it's not a subtractive process. It is an architectural process.
Absolutely.
You can't unboss people. You have to unboss processes or processes.
That does assume that you have your processes well defined and widely understood as well.
Yeah. That would be the issue, and also I'm going to start right away in the steelman side of these points to say, listen, you can't iterate your way into flatness, and also if you're going to have team autonomy by default, that means that you're going to have less managers. We need to cut more non-IC people and delegate that stuff to the teams. Get out of here. And again, part of the Capital One layoff that never really got taught. We talked about it a little bit in our podcast.
Yeah.
But like the Capital One thing is like they centralize all the folks over here in this like COE or whatever. And then you had to go to the COE or whatever. But and then they said, well, we're not going to have this COE and all these people over these whatever 1,200 people or whatever they cut over here in this Agile COE. We're going to put those job roles in the teams, and they're going to be responsible inside the individual hierarchies that the teams are responsible for. And that was kind of like nuance that nobody read in the big news article.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Now I say that, but also I never followed up to see, did they actually hire those people in the teams, or they cut 1,200 people and they hired like 3 people?
My wager is on the latter.
Oh, okay.
But
3 people.
Again, I haven't followed up. 3, 6. Yeah. Team autonomy is great, and it organically means fewer managers. But the fuel here is the authority you give your people, right?
Yeah.
And if that's lacking, then it's not going to be effective at all. Then it will just be a reorg for reorg's sake, and you'll probably still end up reducing numbers and headcounts and all that, but effectiveness, no, not going to get that.
A few things in this category, you architect autonomy through boundaries, and that comes straight out of the Team Topologies book. You usually get product boundaries, or at least like feature boundaries inside of a product. You usually can draw the distinctions inside the swim lane of the Streamline teams. Arguing Agile 67 was a billion years ago, but it's all still relevant
Absolutely.
3.5 whatever years later from when we did it.
Yeah. Also, spans of control, they don't matter as much as flows of context.
Ooh, boy.
Now, this one is from a Fortune article, I guess. Yeah, I mean, there are very few words in that, right? But they mean a lot, at least to me. Spans of control matter less than flows of context.
By the way, that Fortune article is called "Executives Are Drowning. Blame the Vanishing Middle Management Layer" by Lily May Lazarus on April 21st, 2025. We'll put a link to the article in here, but it's got more context, that Fortune article about spans of control matter less than flows of context. Because the executives, they have the flows of context, but then they have to keep repeating that over and over again to everyone that comes asking, because again, like they eliminated all the different layers that would relay their message. It's like their radio station, but they got rid of all like the affiliate stations, so they have to go out and broadcast a message if they want it to get out. And again, we had a podcast on like repeating the message or something. It wasn't called repeating the message, but that's what it was.
Yeah, around communication.
The subtext of the podcast was about, if you're in leadership, I mean, your job role is the message you'd like to broadcast. You need to keep repeating it over and over again for as long as you want people to believe it. And the minute you stop repeating it, people are going to start, like, the doubt will creep in.
Yeah, and without that middle layer, this is more of a drain on your time and energy as well.
Yes.
And we know you don't want that. Yes. So there is that.
I mean, maybe you don't want it, but also you can hire people to do that for you.
You can.
Just saying.
And they would be the middle layer.
Yikes. I mean, there's that. The final point I want to say with when you're doing this right, it should be reducing your cognitive load and does not add oversight and does not put you in the spot of constant vigilance.
This is the secret sauce, right? We're not saying that, don't unboss. We're saying do it the right way. That's what we're saying in this podcast. And earlier in the podcast, we've laid out some steps that, get you to do it the right way if you follow those.
Right.
And hopefully you will be also not overstressed with having to do more oversight if you did it the right way.
Right. That last point of reducing cognitive load. Boy, that's my dream podcast is just specifically a podcast talking about cognitive load. What it is, how to recognize it, how to kind of draw healthy borders on your cognitive load to approach your management to be like, hey, look, I'm like in any given day, like people my age would call it multitasking, like unhealthy multitasking, but it's a murky subject when you try to point it out to be like, well, everyone multitasks, Brian, just like get over it. You just, in order to get better at multitasking, you just got to prioritize better. I don't know. I don't think so. Especially when we're eliminating the middle managers and we're pushing all that stuff down to the developers. For QA, we already eliminated business analysis.
Yes.
We pushed that down to the developer. Right. Now we eliminated QA. Push that down to the developer. Now we're eliminating the developers' managers. Push that down to the developer. Before any of that, the Agile movement eliminated anyone that talked to customers on the development team's behalf. Right. Now the development team's talking to customers. So in certain circles, the development team should do their own marketing. Product management. The product managers and development team should do their own marketing.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of stuff now is like, at what point are we arguing that you don't need any other people in the business other than just that small development team of, whatever, the two pizza team?
Yeah. I agree. It's just one of those things that when you think about it, right, can they just do everything by themselves? Do they have the skills? Do they have the, the authority, etc.? Maybe they should all become salesmen and sell things.
But you got the skills, you got the time, you got the authority. Great. Do you really want to be on an island by yourself, like forging ahead with no help?
While you're on that island, who's developing?
I mean, it seems like you're taking on a lot.
For sure. So the cognitive load podcast is a solid one too. We come up with 2 or 3 really good ones today.
All right,
that we can do in the future.
The takeaways in this category are going to sound a lot like the takeaways we already talked about in several of the other sections. We talked about to do unbossing right, you got to define your interaction boundaries. I know we've already said that before.
Yes.
And you can do this with team topologies by Skelton and the other guy. And then you can recast managers as system enablers. And in the manager slot, I want to pop scrum masters into there, or scaled teams, or any of these other things that people will. That's just overhead. Sure, it's overhead, but again, that overhead. When you say overhead, I hear air cover.
Yes.
And I will tell you, I don't want to go to war without air cover.
When you say overhead, task approvers, the mechanistic side of things, rather than enabling, the people, the processes.
The last point here I didn't talk about yet was flatten only after you can stabilize your workflows. In the last podcast, we talked about, specifically in Deming, if a process is not within statistical control, you have no chance in enhancing it or improving it or whatever.
It's a runaway process, basically. Yes.
Right. So you need to bring those process. You need to stabilize them and bring them into statistical control before you can think about any kind of improvement.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing. Before you can say, I don't need a manager for this. I know all the steps to do whatever. And then, if you're hearing something like that, you need to take a step back for a second and say, is this ego that I'm hearing? Or do you really have, can you show me your flow chart? Can you show me on the whiteboard? Can you show me on the doll? It's complicated. That's what I'm saying. So with everything we discussed today, does the unbossing that we've been talking about today, which is not a real word, but we've been talking about it like it's a real word, does it excite you or does it terrify you? Let us know in the comments below, and also like and subscribe, because every like, I think it saves a puppy.
We like puppies on this podcast.
That's right. So we talked about org flattening, and when it crosses into chaos, when it's done in a sort of a train wreck, haphazard manner,
which is most of the time.
We talked about why, quote, managers are not the problem. It's really usually a problem with system design, like your org is scaled kind of out of control. We talked a lot more about practical redesign tactics before you start cutting away any large layers or going into any of these initiatives to downsize your middle management, your coordination layer of the organization. This was a cool topic. I wanted to talk about it at a high level. I feel like we've achieved that in this podcast. So let us know. Let us know if there's things that we left out, or if there's things that you would have hoped that we talked about that we didn't.
Yeah, or any other topics for that matter.
That's right.
Thank you for staying with us. Like and subscribe once more.